สวัสดีค่ะ Welcome to Sabai Talk Podcast, a podcast about Thai food, Thai culture, and the Thai way of living. My name is Hong Thaimee, a New York City chef and creator of Thaimee, a line of artisanal Thai products.
And I am Pailin, a chef, YouTuber, and creator of hotthaikitchen.com based in Vancouver, Canada. So today for our second episode, we are going to talk about the most famous Thai soup, and that is tom yum. We're going to talk about what it is, the many variations that exist, and how Thai people eat it. And this part will include kind of a crazy story from me. And of course, we're going to give you some tips for how to make it super well at home. But before we get into that, Pi Hong, tell me, what did you eat this week that's worth sharing?
Ooh, I have been, that I find that a very tough question for me when anybody asks what has been a good thing I've eaten. Because I think that I've been eating well every day. But my most favorite that I've had last week is the Khanom Jin Nam Nghieo, which is a dish from northern Thailand. And it's Khanom Jin based. So it's like a fermented rice noodles that have some kind of curry on the top. And the curry, it's made from pork blood, good curry, and have some sourness from tomatoes. And what I love the most is, again, the condiments. I love lots of vegetables on the top with the bean sprouts and the pickle of the mustard greens, squeeze of lime, fried chilies, and the pork skin. Oh my God. I can't, it just make me feel at home every time I have this. So good.
Yes, because you are from the north, just like this dish. So this is like the dish from your hometown. I don't remember the last time I had Khanom Jin Nam Nghieo, to be honest with you. I barely have a memory of what it tastes like. So I really have to find a way to try it.
Next
maybe.
time when you come over, I'll make it for you.
That's it. That's what I want to hear.
Can I tell you? I think it's a bolognese of Thai food. It kind of tastes like that.
Yeah, I can imagine it in my head, given all the ingredients and everything, but I've never actually had it myself. And in Thailand, it is not actually very easy to find if you're not in northern Thailand. Like my family lives in Bangkok. Every time I go, if I were to find Khanom Jin Nam Nghieo, I would have to go to a northern Thai food restaurant, which is not easy to find. So it's not like, you can just walk down the street and find it. So this is definitely on my bucket list of things to try. And I've had people request this recipe on my YouTube channel. And I was like, I haven't had it for years. Don't have a memory of what it should taste like. So I probably shouldn't teach
cook
people
for you,
how to
and
make
I know you fall in love with the dish. And then you can share that with your fans.
That should be the plan. Okay. So for me, I made something super good yesterday. I made Thai boat noodles. Boat noodles.
My fave too. My favorite too.
It is my number one absolute favorite Thai noodle soup. No question about it. Like if I had to eat one type of Thai noodle soup for the rest of my life, this would be it. The broth is richer than most other noodle soup because it's enriched with blood, pork blood or beef blood, but it has lots of spices in it. It's got a really strong flavor. It's spicy. It's a little bit sour. Also with crispy pork skin and lots of condiments. It was so much work. The last time I had boat noodles that I made myself was when I shot my YouTube video of how to make it. And that was 9 years ago. So this is the first time I had it in 9 years. And the reason is because it is a ton of work to make. There's like so many ingredients, and it's just when you're busy, it is like the last thing you want to make. But because I am planning on doing a reshoot of boat noodles video very soon, so I wanted to make it again and make some improvements on it. So we got to enjoy it yesterday.
Cool. That's what kind of noodles did you like in your boat noodle?
Oh, I was about to ask you that. So my favorite is sen lek. And sen lek is, I think, the most popular for boat noodles, and it's rice noodles that are very small, but not so small like the rice vermicelli small. It's like the one size up from that.
You know
And
what? I
you?
have a great idea. We are going to have one episode that we are going to talk about the noodles culture in Thai cooking. How does that sound?
Sounds good. What kind of noodles do you like in your boat noodles?
Depends on what kind of noodles. Meaning, if it is kway chap, I like it sen yai, but most of the time it's sen yai anyway.
No, but for
Uh,
boat noodles though,
for
specifically
boat
boat noodles.
noodle, I love with wooden sen.
Oh, glass noodles.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a really good one. I don't think I've had it before, but I should. All right, so that's our interesting eats of the week. Let's get into tom yum, shall we? So let's first define what tom yum is because it's quite well known, but there are many, many variations of tom yum. And what do you think are the key ingredients that define tom yum as what it is?
I think we can dissect that into, a lot of categories, right? We can make good tom yum when we have a good broth, correct? And if we have a good broth, it would not be complete without the herbs that we put in there. And the herbs that typically we put in there are we sometimes we call it Trinity, right?
That's what
The
I call it.
lemongrass, really?
Mm-hmm.
Lemongrass, galangal, and the makrut lime leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cannot be tom yum without chili and the lime juice that put in there.
Yes.
So to me, what make it tom yum has got to be the decadent, but not in the sweetest way. It's in the sour, it's in the spice, it's in the spiciness, it's in the sensation once you have it, the soup, and it just open all your senses, right? Sometimes I kind of think like in Japanese cooking, you have umami, that the fifth element. But I think like in Thailand, we have sap, the senses that it just like open up all your pores, right? Because you get sweat and your tongue started to swell a little bit because of the spiciness and the sourness of it or something that make you, it sounds painful, but I think like that is a sensation of joy.
I
Sometimes
know.
I find.
I know exactly what you mean. So sap, technically in the Northeastern language, it just means delicious. But the
Mm-hmm.
way Thai people use it in the whole country, it means delicious, but spicy also. Like it has to be delicious plus spicy. It can't just be delicious. And that is sap. And I agree with you that sap has an element of fun to it. Like it's this
Yes.
joy and adrenaline rush of eating something that's so good, but you're sweating. That is sap to me.
True. I think it's a sensation of joy and you can't stop.
Yeah, and I would throw in fish sauce as well as a
True.
must-have ingredient for tom
Mm-hmm.
yum. You have to have fish sauce in it as a salty element. And I remember you spoke about the importance of sour. I remember that in my tom yum recipe, I call for a quarter cup of lime juice for the one pot. And I had somebody like just in disbelief saying, a quarter cup of lime juice? That sounds like way too much lime juice. And I was like, no, that is what's supposed to be. This soup is supposed to be sour. If you have tom yum and it is not distinctly sour, it's not right. Right? It shouldn't be like chicken noodle soup. You shouldn't drink this and say, oh, so comforting. No, it should like wake up every taste bud in your mouth. And yes, a quarter cup of lime juice for a whole pot of tom yum is not that much. It is exactly what it needs. Okay. So now that we know what tom yum is, let's talk briefly about what we know about the origins of tom yum because as it turns out, we don't know all that much.
Well, yes. But what we know is that before, again, we have a lot of, Thai food is a lot of fusions that we learn and we adapt our own, correct? But we
Yes.
know before all the migration of other cultures in our own country, we cooked by grilling, boiling, and pretty much it, right? Something like straightforward. And I think that from the 16th century, when the Portuguese when they brought in the chilies, we starting to do something and make it our own.
Yes. So definitely, if chilies are an integral part of tom yum, then it has to be sometime after the Portuguese
Correct. And then the
brought
development
chilies.
of the culture from that.
Yes. So I would imagine, I mean, this is just theory from me. I would imagine we were already making some kind of soup with these herbs,
Mm-hmm.
lemongrass, galangal, lime leaves, which is endemic to Thailand. But maybe with the introduction of chilies, we started adding chilies to the soup, and then it developed into tom yum that we know of today.
And then also, I think in our culture, when we season anything, it's always not just like one element, right? Like we make a lot of elements and make it rounded, well blended. And I think like that's how Tom Yum got started.
Right. Yes, totally. Tom yum is one of those dishes that has everything: sweet, salty, sour, spicy, and umami. So, what is your favorite type of tom yum?
Ooh, I love my Tom Yum Nam Saiค่ะ.
Mm.
So for those who are listening at home, Nam Sai meaning it is clear broth. I like it clear broth and I love it with a uses of both toasted chilies and fresh chilies.
Toasted dry chilies, you mean?
Yes. Toasted dry chili and the fresh chili at the same time. It's
And
just
what kind of
so good.
protein?
I can do anything to tell the truth. As long as the soup is tom yum, the soup it just hit it. It I'm easy to please but hard to impress. Let's put it that way.
so, so you like nam sai, which means clear broth. The other kind that we have is nam kon, which is thick broth, and that's a relatively new kind of tom yum. It's quite modern. Most people nowadays will thicken the broth using evaporated milk, and the fact that it's evaporated milk, you can tell that it's a pretty modern thing. You can also add coconut milk to make it a little bit thicker. But I think the reason people add evaporated milk is because when you add coconut milk, it'll taste like coconut. So if you want to thicken the broth without it tasting like coconut, like you want to just like a more neutral flavor, then evaporated milk is a good option. For me, if it's tom yum gung, if it's tom yum with shrimp, I like nam kon. I like the thick broth. I find that richness really
I think
satisfying.
I think when you say the thick broth, you mean creamy broth,
Creamy
correct?
broth. Yes, creamy broth. That's a better translation. It's not thick. It's still very, very brothy and light. It's just a creamy. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for the correction.
I can read your mind now.
However, if it is anything but shrimp, like chicken, fish, it has to be clear broth. And in fact, we only do creamy broth with shrimp, right? We don't do chicken tom yum with
You're right.
with
You're absolutely
creamy
right.
broth. Like it does not exist. So chicken, fish, anything else at all, it will be clear and it'll be like a light and tart soup. But some reason the shrimp is the one that we do a lot of different things with.
But you know what? I'm going to pick, from what you just said. And I made it one time at my pop-up in Bahrain. I made tom yum gung nam kon. And I serve it in coconut, the whole coconut shell. It's so decadent and so amazing. That's one of my favorite pop-up menu memory.
Did you use the coconut water in the tom yum soup?
Yes. We open the whole coconut and then we take the water out to mix in with the fresh, like fresh coconut milk with the broth and then extra evaporated milk and some nampik pao.
Oh, and
And
nampik
with
pao.
beautiful shrimps and all the herbs. It was so good.
Let's
I'm
talk about nampik
salivating.
pao.
I'm salivating as I'm talking about it.
Let's talk about nampik pao because it is a very important ingredient when it comes to tom yum with shrimp. Nampik pao is Thai chili paste. It's made mostly with shallots, garlic, dried chilies, dried shrimp. It's quite sweet, so there's quite a bit of sugar in it, and it's added to tom yum with shrimp only. Like we don't make tom yum chicken with nampik pao. Nampik pao is a strictly tom yum shrimp ingredient. I mean, you can if you want to, but you won't find that in Thailand. But a lot of people, I think, because in America, they make, because in America, you have to offer a chicken option for everything. When they make tom yum chicken in North America, they also put nam prik pao because it's sort of like the original tom yum goong, but because a lot of people don't eat shellfish, so they want to have the chicken version, and they simply just remove the shrimp and add the chicken, but keep the broth the same. But if you go to Thailand and you order tom yum chicken, it'll be a completely different thing. Like it doesn't taste anything like tom yum goong.
But you know what? I have to add on to that as well, that I think Tom Yum Goong is a central Thai dish. Okay.
Yes.
And in central Thailand, we're famous for gigantic river prawn. And I think that is how this dish become famous, right? You take
Yes.
the shrimp, the river prawn. Okay. You have to help me out here. What is the correct way? Is it prawn or is it shrimp? What's the difference between the prawn and the shrimp?
I mean, if you're speaking to Americans, there's no such thing as a prawn. If you're speaking to British people, I think there's no such thing as a shrimp. So you just call it whatever you want.
Yeah, and I think I'm confusing because I live with someone who brought up in London, and I'm a Thai living in New York City. So in our household, sometimes we call it prawn, sometimes we call it shrimp. But anyway, it's the yumminess that we get it from the river, and then we kind of make it our own. And so those of you who get to travel to Thailand, I highly recommend to drive outside to Ayutthaya. It's about an hour and a half. You have the best tom yum goong in that area.
And river prawns are almost like lobsters.
Yeah,
They're
like a baby lobster.
They're enormous, but they are better than lobsters. Like the meat is more tender. It's not as tough as lobsters can be.
Mm-hmm.
And they are the reason why you pay so much money for river prawns is the tamale in the head, the fat, the shrimp fat that's in the head. And that stuff gets put in all sorts of things, including tom yum, and it makes the broth really, really rich. And it's like, I call it shrimp foie gras because the stuff is actually an equivalent of liver in shrimp. So, and it's like this rich, delicious, fatty shrimp liver. And it's basically shrimp foie gras.
I love this episode so much. You know what? I like how you call it foie gras. I've heard it from the other YouTuber, Mark. He called it butter, shrimp butter.
Shrimp butter. That works too.
Huh?
That works too. Okay, so we've alluded a little bit to various different kinds of tom yum, but let's really talk specifically about not just types of tom yum, but like cousins of tom yum, meaning dishes that are not called tom yum, but have very, very similar ingredients. So I'll start with one that I think most people will know, and that's tom kha gai. So tom kha gai, when you look at it, it has many similar ingredients. The same three herbs: lemongrass, galangal, lime leaves. It's got fish sauce, lime juice, sugar, but it has coconut milk. And it is usually made not as spicy and not as sour. So it's a smoother, more comforting soup. But as far as ingredients go, it's very similar to like a tom yum chicken plus coconut milk.
Which one do you prefer, tom yum or tom kha?
It depends on my mood. Like I feel like the two are so different. Like if I want something comforting, definitely tom kha because of that coconut milk and the mild acidity. But if I want something, if I have a cold and I need something to clear my sinuses, tom yum is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
What other tom yum adjacent dishes do you know of?
Tom sap, right? Especially tom sap kaduk on.
Which is?
It's like a sour soup, tom sap, right? So sour is not as spicy, but it's more like use a lot of pricky nusu, and that is not that spicy. But sour would be the more pronounced flavor for the dish. I also love tom klong. I love it so much. It's basically the tom yum version. Imagine tom yum version, but with two different approach. One, the sourness is from tamarind, and then you smoke, not smoke per se, but you grill the shallots and the lemongrass and galangal and make it a little bit smoky before you make into a soup.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you,
Yes.
what we're talking about right now is the soup base that has some kind of relationship with tom yum.
Yes. And with tom klong, typically you'd add smoked fish, right? To
Mm-hmm.
get
Mm-hmm.
so the broth gets that extra smoky flavor. It's like the smoky tom yum, basically.
I love it so much. It's just so good. Tom klong. Oh,
Yeah.
for those who are listening at home, you probably wonder why we talk about soup and how do Thai people have soup in every meal that we have. Don't you think? What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that what I'm saying is like they're what? 3 seasons in Thailand, right? Hot,
Yeah.
hotter and hottest. And how come we still drink? I mean, not drink. How come we still eat Thai soups? I mean, spicy and hot soup at all times. Do you have any
Yeah.
answer to that? Because I can add that.
Why don't you go first?
I believe the reason we like spicy and hot soup that we can have it all day long, 24/7, is that it helps us decompress and detemper our body temperature. Because when we have spicy food, we sweat, and sweat like helps, like the body temperature to cool down.
So personally, I have never associated spicy food with hot temperature. Like, meaning it doesn't matter what the temperature is. Like, I either want spicy food or I don't want spicy food. It is not related to whether it's cold or hot outside. If I'm in the mood for spicy food, I'm gonna have it in 35-degree Celsius weather, and if I don't, then I don't. So I understand why people who grow up in places with cold and hot seasons would have preferences for certain kinds of food during certain kinds of season. But if you grow up in the tropics like we did, like it's hot every day, right? So you come to you get used to it and you dissociate food with temperature. Like it's just not a thing that I think about. And the other reason why Thai people, I think, love eating soup with our meal is it serves as something to wash down everything else that we're having, right? Like when we have Thai food, we usually have multiple things. And sometimes those things are dry, like fried fish or stir fry. And the soup is there to moisten the whole meal, to add moisture for the whole thing. And when you take a couple of sips of soup in between your meal, it almost clears your palate so you can start fresh. So I think for a lot of people, and not just Thai people, Asian people in general, Chinese people love having soup for that reason. It just helps cleanse your palate for the next bite that you're taking.
Meaning that in our culture, we don't do like first course or second course. Typically, we
Yes.
start with like a small bite, like salad or snack. And then for main course, typically we would have rice with some kind of protein and then the soup and the veggies.
Yeah.
Correct.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, for a lot of people, there's only one course. Like the food comes, everything all at once, and that's it. So things have to help each other like balance. So we don't ever sit with a bowl of tom yum soup and just eat it by itself. Like on its own, right? Like
Yeah.
it has to go with rice and it
Mm-hmm.
has to go with like the rest of the meal. Although in America, I know that they do that, where if you order tom yum in a restaurant, sometimes they'll just give it to you first and then you finish the soup and then the rest of the meal comes. But know that that's only because they're trying to adapt to the Western way of eating. Like that's not how Thai people do it, but because people expect soup to come first, that's what they give you. Like they just wanna please you, right? But that is not how it's done. So let's move on to a topic that I find very interesting is tom yum that is not soup. Because tom
Mm.
yum is such a popular flavor in Thailand that you can walk down the aisle of the grocery stores and find snacks, potato chips, like nuts, flavored with tom yum. And there are dishes that are flavored with tom yum. What are some of your favorite tom yum flavored things?
Maybe making a pasta with tom yum.
Oh, I
And I
love
believe
that.
there's a big American brand. I cannot say it for branding purposes. But I believe that they have the tom yum on their potato chips
Oh,
repertoire.
yes. Yes, for sure.
Sometimes they do tom yum pizza, so tom yum cocktail.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of like high end bar do the tom yum cocktail. Okay, creative is a it's a form of art, right?
yeah. Yeah. So on my website, I have, and this did not happen intentionally, just over the year. I love tom yum so much that over the years, I've made so many tom yum flavored recipes. Here are the recipes that I have on my site: tom yum pizza, which is
Mm-hmm.
super delicious; tom yum spaghetti,
Mm-hmm.
where I put basically tom yum flavor into tomato sauce. I have
Mm.
tom yum fried rice,
Mm-hmm.
and oh, and finally dry tom yum, meaning
Yes.
instead of making
Yes.
a soup, you basically make a stir fry with a really concentrated tom yum flavored sauce.
It's funny that all the soup that we talk about that associate with tom yum, none of them translate into the dry version or put in the pizza or putting meaning like into another dish. That means that tom yum has this charming and a very good influence for our Thai flavors, don't you think?
For sure. Like, this is the number one thing that gets turned into other things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we don't have masaman, curry, everything under the sun, but we
Mm-hmm.
have tom yum, everything under the sun. And I think it's a flavor that just works so well with just about everything.
And I see a couple of people love making tom yum noodles. What is your take on that?
Oh, okay. So there are two types of tom yum noodles when we're talking in Thailand. There is the type where you make tom yum soup and then you just put noodles in it and then you eat that as a meal. But if you're walking around the streets of Thailand and you order tom yum noodles, what that means is they'll take your basic regular noodle soup and then add lime juice, chilies, ground pork, and ground peanuts into your regular noodle soup. So there's no lemongrass, no lime leaves, no galangal added. It's just they're adding the spicy and sour flavor of tom yum into a regular noodle soup. I love it. Like, I love tom yum tom yummed versions of regular noodle soup. And you can turn just about any noodle soup into tom yum. And they'll just add those things. They'll just add lime juice, chilies, ground pork, and peanuts. That's it.
But I find that when we do that, we have to make the broth a little bit more like a stronger flavor of everything because when you put
Mm-hmm.
in the noodles, it's kind of dilute the broth.
Yes. Yes. If you're just making like a regular bowl of tom yum and then just dropping a bunch of noodles in it and you eat it, it will definitely be more diluted. And when I teach people how to make noodle soup, I always say when you taste the broth, it should be too strong because you're going to add veggies, you're going to add noodles, all of that has water and it's going to dilute it a little bit. So if you taste the broth and it's perfect, by the time you sit down to eat it, it's going to taste a little bit too bland. If you're in Thailand, that's okay because on the table, there will be fish sauce. There'll be all the condiments that you need to season and make your broth taste exactly what you need.
So, do you think it's possible that our listener at home, anywhere in the world, could make the best version of tom yum in their own kitchen?
Oh, 100%. It is one of the easiest dishes. In fact, it is one recipe that I recommend beginners start with. There are very few things that can go wrong. You don't need special technique. You just need a good ratio. You need to add enough herbs. You need to add the right amount of sugar and fish sauce and lime juice. But unlike, say, pad thai, you don't need to control the heat precisely. You don't need to make sure the noodles are properly. So like there's not a ton of technique that's going on. I mean, it's a soup for God's sake, right? Like it's pretty easy. So I think it's one of the easiest dishes to perfect if you have like a good recipe to start with.
Do you have any good tips for our followers?
I certainly do. So I'll share one tip that I think is probably one of the most important is you have to start with a good stock. Like, if you use water as a base for tom yum, it is not going to be great because it's just going to taste watery. And people underestimate the power of a good stock in soup. Like if you use a good strong chicken stock, pork stock, shrimp stock, doesn't matter what kind of fish stock if you're making fish tom yum, but that will make a world of difference in how your tom yum tastes. And how about you?
I would say that put the lime juice at the very end. Do not put lime juice when the water's boiling. I mean, when the broth is boiling, because it's going to turn the soup to bitterness. And that is something you don't want to do. And when I was a junior cook and I started in the kitchen, I make a mistake and the whole of my mise en place had to be taken away. Embarrassing. So do not repeat my mistake.
What are your thoughts about dried herbs for tom yum?
I am not a fan, but I understand in some countries you cannot find fresh. But I would highly recommend to use frozen rather than dry if you can. And I think that in frozen section you can find a lot of them.
Yeah, for sure. Like it really does make a difference. And my only tip is if dried is all you have, like you really can't find anything else, you have to add more
Mm-hmm.
than the recipe calls for because the
Mm-hmm.
dried, they've lost a lot of their flavor during drying. So you have to add more.
And you know, another thing that I wanted to say too is that when we, a chef and, you know, like a very, yeah, when we chef create recipes, we love what we love from the ingredients that we can find. But for you at home, you know, you have to learn from what we do and then create your own, the flavors that you love. So it's okay that, you know, you can use our recipe as the base and then develop things that you would like. But just know that if you like it more balanced, just make sure that you put kind of, you know, everything in a very good ratio.
For sure. Okay, so let's talk about how to eat tom yum because I find a lot of times when people are faced with a Thai meal and there's like a stir fry, a soup, and like all these different things in front of them, they don't really know what to do with the soup, you
Well,
know?
first thing first, when you go to a Thai restaurant, most of the time they're going to give you a sharing spoon and sharing bowls, like a small bowls. Some restaurants in Thailand will serve the bowl and then will come to the table and serve the individual bowl right in front of you. Okay. You got to learn that we love herbs and we're not afraid of them, but it's not necessarily mean that we're eating all the, all the fibrous lemongrass and the galangal. So enjoy the broth and enjoy the sensation. And I think like that, how you do it. No?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
oh, oh, but sometimes in Thailand, you serve it in the mall fire style.
which
How?
is,
You know, mall fire.
it's a flaming pot. It's like a
Yes.
pot with fire coming up in the middle of the thing. Yes. I actually hate that.
Why?
Like, because it overcooks everything. Like it comes to the table and the thing continues to boil, the soup continues to evaporate, and this like whatever protein is in the soup that doesn't get taken out immediately continues to overcook, and the soup becomes more and more concentrated. I just like no, I don't need this soup to continue to boil in front of me. I think it's mostly just for show. I never get things in more mafai if I can help it.
But okay, but for those who, you know, want to experience like eating in Thailand, there's some kind of tom yum restaurant that they would say tom yum mo fai. So look for that as well.
Right.
For
Yeah.
experience sake.
Yes, and then blow out the fire when it gets to the table. That's what I say. So another tip for how to eat tom yum is you eat it with your meal. So you don't, as I said before, you don't eat it before or after. You just eat it during your meal. Couple bites of the rice, couple bites of the soup, and it just all goes together. So it's just part of the flow of the meal. Now, you mentioned briefly that we don't eat the herbs, and I think this is not obvious for people. So the lemongrass, galangal, and lime leaves that we talked about earlier, these are very, very fibrous herbs, very much like bay leaves. So we do not eat that. However, in Thailand, we don't take them out for you. They're left in the soup because it's just common sense for Thai people that this is this is just like the bay leaves and the cinnamon stick that you don't eat, right? But funny story, when I first came to Canada, I went out to a Thai restaurant with some friends, and they were all Canadian friends, and we sat down and ate tom yum. And my friend tried to eat the lemongrass. And that was the very first time I realized that it is not obvious to other people, like that this needs to be taught, because to them, it just looks like a vegetable, right? Like if it's in the soup, in Western cuisine, everything can be eaten. I mean, it could be a stick of asparagus or whatever. So she just tried to eat it. And I was like, oh, it had never occurred to me that this is something that needs to be taught. So years later, when I started my YouTube channel, I made sure to tell people, like, you have two options. You either take all of these herbs out and then serve the soup and then be done with it, or you let people know at the table that, by the way, these are not to be eaten. What I personally do is actually something in between, because I add a lot of herbs to my tom yum because I like a lot of that flavor. But when you're eating, it can be really annoying to like have to navigate through all these things. But I do like the aesthetics of the herbs being in there, because if you take everything out, it looks very bare. So I take out half. I take out just like most of it, just so that it's easier to eat and to serve. But I still leave some in there so you can visually see what are the flavors that go in to the soup. And before I finish, can I tell this really cool story? I don't know if it's cool, but it's a very interesting story. So many years ago, I ended up consulting a lawyer who was working on a court case where somebody was suing a Thai restaurant because they swallowed a piece of lemongrass in tom kha.
I've never heard such a thing.
Yeah, this actually happened. I was so shocked. And so this person drank the soup, and there was a piece of tom kha just small enough to be swallowed. And then it ended up piercing through his intestine. And it was a medical situation that became very, very major. So they were suing the restaurant. And so I was consulted on the case because the lawyer had found my video where I talked about the herbs are not supposed to be eaten and all this stuff. But you just never know what's going to happen. And so it's so important. I mean, for most people, nothing bad is going to happen, but you're going to end up with like people being embarrassed because they're trying to chew through lemongrass, which is impossible to chew through, and have a really unpleasant experience. And, they have to spit it out, which is embarrassing. It's just like, you just have to tell people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such a story.
Yeah. That was the most interesting job I've ever taken. Let's just put it that way.
So how did the cost, I mean, what did the court say? Did they win the case?
I don't know if I can disclose that information.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. It's many years ago, but I'm pretty sure I signed something that says I can't disclose all the details other than just the rough story of kind of what happened, as a way to warn other people that, hey, like this can be serious. So not to say that, this is common. I mean, it was a freak accident. It's very hard to swallow a whole piece of lemongrass. But if it's cut in just the right size, you just never know, right? So,
no comment from me in that case.
All right. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to leave for the viewers? Any final tips before we go?
I think that tom yum is a great starter for you, for those who listen at home. If you want to learn how to cook Thai food, you're absolutely right. It's easy enough. And then you can practice how to balance it out. And cooking is never a rocket science, big project to do. Don't complicate it. Try, enjoy, and learn from a mistake. And it's okay to make a mistake.
Sounds good. And I have one last question for you before we wrap up, is what dish do you recommend serving with tom yum?
Kai jiao.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Kai jiao.
Kai jiao is a Thai scrambled eggs. It's one of the most Thai comfort, and it pairs. So it's like a marriage in heaven, right?
You call it scrambled egg? I call it omelette.
Oh,
I've
what's
never
the
heard
difference
it
then?
referred to as a
Really, a scrambled egg? I think it's a scrambled egg, like a Thai way.
I mean, you do scramble the eggs, but when you cook it, it's in one piece. Anyway, I call it a Thai omelet. But anyway, you beat the eggs and you fry it in like a big circle, and it really does go well with tom yum because it absorbs the broth, right? Like,
So good.
yeah, and it's
So
very
good.
easy. I have a recipe on my website, so if you're making tom yum and you want to find something to pair it with, kai jiao is definitely. I 100% agree with that recommendation.
And you know what?
And
Especially if you have the pig nam plau on the side.
Yes.
Oh, I love this recipe. I mean, I love this episode so much. It makes me hungry.
Pig nam plau, for those of you who don't know, is the Thai condiment of fish sauce, lime juice, and chilies. It's a condiment that we put on just about everything to make anything taste better. And really, anything tastes better with pig nam plau.
It's true.
And that is it for today. If you want to make tom yum at home, I do have several tom yum recipes on my website, hotthaikitchen.com, as I said. And for more Thai food content, I am at Pailin's Kitchen on YouTube and Hot Thai Kitchen on Instagram.
And for me, you can follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and coming soon on YouTube at Hong Thaimee, and also hongthaimee.com.
And what's on hongthaimee.com?
A lot of goodies. Maybe pad thai will come. I mean, I'm sorry. Maybe tom yum will come soon. So we'll see. Why not?
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And I will see you next time. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ